I was not planning to come, so I was just in Bangalore for some other work. But then I saw all the photos, I saw, what folks are doing. Then I was overcome with FOMO, to come and see the place. So, but yeah, very happy to be here. So, just as a quick intro, I'm Arjun. I head growth at Polygon. I've been at Polygon almost like I think over 2 years now. So, I was basically the first business hire, and I was brought in to build out all the different teams. So, I've been doing that ever since. Um, it was a very different time then. We were just 20, 22 people. And yeah, I mean, now we are almost close to 500 people. We've got big teams in India, in the US, in Europe, fairly globalized company. We're building multiple products, across different types of blockchain streams, like on the ZK side, on identity, and on several other concepts. And it does feel very strange, I must say, because all of this happened quite quickly. I think the community has been very kind to us. So yeah, so that's just a quick brief about me. I'm not much for speeches or anything like that. I've been a builder myself before I joined Polygon. So yeah, so if you guys have any questions, anything you'd like to ask me, just feel free to shoot. If there's anything you'd like to know about Polygon, and what we've been doing almost for the last 2 years, anything like that, just let me know, and I can cover those as well. But I'd love for this to be interactive, and you can ask me anything, honestly.
How your journey of exploring new users and developers explicitly, because it is more of ecosystem that builds Polygon. How did you find and tap onto those user segments first, and what has been your journey so far into tapping into these markets?
Got it. Great question. So I think for any technical product, right, like blockchain or like any product like this, obviously the bedrock is developers, and it's something we understood very quickly. And I think one thing which maybe is unique about Polygon compared to maybe some of the other blockchains is that all the founders come from developer backgrounds. Like all the 4 founders, whether it's Sandeep, Anurag, JD, or Mihailo, all of them come from developer backgrounds. I was heading business. I also come from a developer background. So the mindset which has pervaded Polygon ever since then and even today has been a builder first mindset, right? And just like what you asked me, like the first question which even I had, as once I joined Polygon a month into my journey, I kind of realized that how do we make this super easy for developers? Like how do I just create like a system or documentation or tooling or whatever so that it becomes easy for developers to deploy? There were many things we had to do initially. Like it was a funny story, right? Because there was nothing. There was just this documentation which frankly was confusing because I tried to build. I was like, yaar, ye nahi chalega. Like we need to have something simpler. So we started working on documentation. One thing very interesting, what we did is we engaged the community. So we put out bounties and we told people that, guys, if you create like a great YouTube tutorial, if you create like a great blog or something like that, which helps developers deploy, then we'll give you a bounty just during the initial days, right? And we rolled out several of these bounties. And then over a period of time, we realized that by crowdsourcing such information, like we were able to get like many different types of tutorials. So you understand, right? So instead of me creating a tutorial, which in my mind explains something well, you've got 20, 25 different types of tutorials explained by different people using different types of tooling sets. Somebody is using VS Code, somebody is using something else. People are using Truffle, Hard Hat, whatever have you. So suddenly you had material which helped any kind of developer understand how to build stuff. Second was hackathons. So we said, you want to understand how developers think, you want to understand their problems, start sponsoring hackathons and start talking to the teams there, right? Not just, bounty dal diya, $100,000 or million or whatever. Talk to the developers, be there, go ask them, what are the problems you're facing? What do you like about Polygon? What do you don't like? And this entire process, we have ever since I've joined, is something which I've inculcated into the teams that this is something we will always do. We will always sponsor hackathons and we will always talk to the builder community and we will take their feedback seriously because that's the only way we can build better platforms. And it's so much more important now because we have multiple products. See, when I joined, there was one chain and there was a testnet, right? Now we've got a ZK chain, we have Polygon Edge, we've got Polygon ID. Even for the zkEVM, as you've seen, there are different variants. Polygon POS chain is continuously seeing improvements as well. So there is so much we need to cover, and the only way out is to engage the community. So focusing on documentation, crowdsourcing it, and involving the community, getting video tutorials out there, going and sponsoring hackathons, talking to people, right? Talking to teams incessantly. There was a time I would take like almost 16, 17 calls a day, like 8 to 9 hours in a day. I was just on calls, just talking to people. And I ensured everybody on the team did that, because every day in the morning stand-up call, I would ask them, whom did you talk to? What did you learn? What is the feedback? What do we do better? Like every day for literally, the first like 9 to 10 months, even up to the first year. And because of this kind of rigor, right, we were able to take information very quickly and iterate very quickly. I did not wait for some 3 quarterly plan or some yearly plan and then, okay, now we need, no. On a week-on-week basis, we were iterating, continuously ahead of the curve, continuously talking to people. So I think this is kind of what has created sort of this movement for people, which made it easy to build on Polygon. And of course, we were EVM compatible. So anything which worked on Ethereum, automatically worked on Polygon. I think a big focus for me initially was to get huge amounts of tooling made. So for example, all the common ones now, like Chainlink, is synonymous now, but there was a time we had to convince Sergey, the founder of Chainlink, that, bro, like, please, like, and then even this covalent APIs, right, which everybody uses now. There was a time when we were like, bro, like please. It was a tough time, because we're a small company, right? We don't have money also, right? Somebody asked me for $1 million, I'd be like, I mean, it doesn't matter now. We spent $1 billion acquiring ZK teams. I mean, money doesn't matter now, but there was a time we couldn't afford any of this. And I had to talk, to all of these tooling guys, literally, right? So this was basically mera kaam tha haath jodna, for literally 3-4 mahine ki, sir, bana do. And then, in return, what I would tell them is, okay, if you develop something for Polygon, then I will ensure I take you to every hackathon. And this is something you must have seen even here, that we've got so many partners and tooling providers. Like, where did this culture start? It was not there in hackathons before. This culture started is because I told them, you help me, I will help you. That's my responsibility. I will go to hackathons and I will put you in front of developers for adoption. Right? And then the rest is up to you. If your tooling is good, people will use it. But, otherwise they won't. And because it was mutual, that they helped me, I helped them, is because we are able to get where we are. So this is kind of, like a really important learning for me at the time, that you have to engage the community, you have to help people, you have to help others become successful. And if others become successful, then you automatically are successful. And that was a philosophy with which we operated. Right? And obviously, like, big tenet was humility. Because even though we're big now and, all the swag or whatever have you, I still remember the time when it was so difficult. And I ensure that the teams never forget that. Never forget our developer roots, never forget, our humble beginnings, the fights we needed to fight. And this is kind of the reason why we want to do these kind of programs, so that we make it more easy for Indian developers, to be taken seriously in the global market. There was a time we had to raise funding, right? And everybody in Silicon Valley is like, yeah, Indian scammer aa gaya fir se. Like, brown people have come. And I don't know if you know this team, it's this term called Pajit, right? Which is a Silicon Valley term for, like, brown founders and developers and things like that. So there was a lot of fighting which had to be done, for us to get our due. Rightfully so, not because, we wanted, because we've actually built something. And it was a really tough fight. So we want to make sure that, we create systems which makes it easy for the next 10 polygons. So that when they go to Silicon Valley, they be taken seriously. That people know, acha, he's from India. These guys, we saw Polygon. We've seen so many other big Instadapp and all of these kind of apps. These guys know how to build stuff. So we should take them seriously. And so this is kind of, how we went about sort of building this and getting that credibility to the point now we want to help everybody else get that credibility. So a very long-winded answer. Sorry about that, but I just thought I'd cover some of the stuff. Yeah. Anything else? Any of you guys want to ask me?
So, like, at the time, you had funding. So now what do you do? Like, is there any other earning mechanisms for, like, Polygon?
For Polygon?
Yeah.
So, okay. So do you understand how blockchain economies work?
Yeah, like mostly the gas fees is how you.
Right. So you're on the right track, right? So if you look at companies in general, this is an important concept since all of you guys' ultimate plan is to build a company, right? So let's start and cover some basics. So good question. So it gives me an opportunity to, maybe take some questions and explain how this works. Now, every company obviously has to create value for their investors and shareholders, right? There has to be some cash flow revenue mechanism, right? So if you look at Polygon, just like how you said, Polygon is a blockchain. It is not really run by Polygon. It is run by the validators, who are running and validating this chain, because the validators are providing decentralized compute power to the blockchain, right? That's how you run smart contracts. Otherwise, you can't. So the validators are basically running the chain. Whenever you request decentralized computation, which is basically running a smart contract, creating an NFT, sending a transaction, whatever have you, you are essentially requesting compute from the network. Somebody is fulfilling that request. You are paying gas fees to that person, right? And all of this, again, you randomize this, you put some sort of algorithm, like you basically use PBFT, IBFT, you do some sort of consensus mechanism to ensure that there is a fair distribution, that everybody gets to provide computation power. So how the business of a blockchain works is, the more demand there is for the blockchain, the more transaction fees we generate. The more transaction fees we generate, basically the more of these fees goes to all of our validators. This has two effects. Number one, it creates buy pressure on the token. And number two, it creates competition for being a validator. See, you are a validator. You are validating a blockchain. You make money when people pay gas fees. You want more people to pay gas fees, right? So you will automatically go to a blockchain which has huge number of users, because you'll be like, these Polygon chain, a lot of users are there, a lot of transactions are happening, I can make money here. So there is competition to be a validator. And what that means is that highest quality validators are there in your ecosystem, right? Because there's competition. And we've restricted the validator slots, right? Currently there are 100 validators. So we've got 100 of the best validators on the planet. Like, people talk about decentralization, but also the quality of the validator, right? Uptime, network latency. Like, we've got the best validators, because if you're a validator and if you're validating Polygon, you make bank, you make money. So coming back to the business of the blockchain, the more transactions happen, more of this fees is accrued by the validators, and this creates continuous buy pressure on the token, which adds utility to your token, right? And what we've also done is that like, Polygon is a proof of stake network. So you can stake tokens on the network for security, right? So on the Polygon POS chain, if you see, there's almost like, I don't know, like maybe like $2.5 billion or $3 billion worth of tokens which are staked, which means if you need to attack the network, you need maybe like a 4 or 5 multiple of, like, this amount of value, so that you can get 2/3 of the validators on your side. So on Polygon, there's 66% consensus, 2 by 3 plus 1. So, you would need that amount of money to attack the system. So the token is not only for gas fees, but it also is for the security of the network. And if you look at Polygon now, we've got proof of stake network for sure, but we also have a zkEVM on the way. We've got Polygon edge networks. There might be multiple chains. All of these chains will be using Polygon for staking. So there is immense pressure of absorption of the network. Absorption of the token from the network, which gives the token value, right? And over a period of time, the future of any blockchain ultimately is going to be similar to what Ethereum is today, right? See, Ethereum is not run by anybody. It's a decentralized organization. They roll out bounties for people to build stuff. Engineers build it. So Ethereum is running a properly decentralized network. Our North Star is, we need to somehow get there. We need to build a really big, strong network which will stand the test of time, like Ethereum, and it should be completely decentralized. So me or Sandeep or whatever, over a period of time, should not have a say in the network. That's the final state we want to get to. And once you get to that final state, this is how this entire economy will run, where the token will primarily become a staking token, which is used to secure the network over a period of time, right? So right now it's gas fees and staking. Over a period of time, it will become purely staking, simply because in a zk chain, the gas fees is paid in Ethereum. So how does Polygon make money? If we get more and more adoption, which will lead to more gas fees, which will lead to more staking, creating buy pressure on the token value also goes up, which gives us like a treasury with which we can run operations. But what I'm trying to tell you is, I don't plan to run operations for 100 years. I want to run it for maybe 5 to 6 years. After that, it becomes like Ethereum. मुझे तो बस 5 साल का धंधा चलाना है ना, मेरे को 15 साल 20 साल का धंधा ही नहीं चलाना. Best case scenario है. So this is how we have to decentralize this chain. तो हमें profit motive सोचना ही नहीं है, हमें decentralization सोचना है. हमें सोचना है, how do we create a system which will stand the test of time over 20 years, 30 years? What kind of governance should you build so that the system continuously updates itself? How do we build a system where grants, etc., are given fairly, so that there is incentive for developers to build your system, to improve this? So this is kind of how blockchain economies run. Does that make sense? All right.
Hey, hi, it's great to see you. I wanted to ask you about how to, since you have worked with Polygon in its early stages and you had to recruit a bunch of people,
Yeah.
talk to a lot of people, ton of them. So how do you identify a builder, right? So yesterday Pranav was here. He was talking about builder's mentality. Unfortunately, he didn't, get into the intricacies. But what do you think about what's a builder mentality like?
प्रणव को भी मैंने हायर किया था. हाँ नहीं he is doing really well, and I think it's but coming back to so that's a great question actually. Now that I think about it, for me it's very instinctive. Like when I talk to somebody, I can tell. Like I can't explain to you exactly. But okay, so let me maybe tell you some characteristics. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but some things which reveal that, okay, this person may have such a mentality, right? Number one is a natural, innate born curiosity. So people who tend to do well as builders have this naturally curious mindset. You want to know something. I can't explain why, or you also can't explain why. कि मेरे को क्यों जानना है? But you want to know. You want to experiment. You want to continuously know something. That natural curiosity I've seen is a trait of some great builders. Like ये मैंने JD में भी देखा है. Like starting से JD का चलता रहता है दिमाग. Like he's always thinking, like ऐसे कैसे होगा, ऐसे कैसे होगा, ऐसे कैसे होगा. And sometimes you might think, यार बन गया network यार, chill मार ले. नहीं. Like naturally he's like that, right? And then that's a trait of a great builder. So natural born curiosity, right, which people have to know things, right? And to on top of that curiosity, right, there's also another two. So I'll tell you two traits which I feel reveal things. There are other traits as well, but like I said, number one, curiosity, but there's also a number two very important trait, and that is a bias towards action. See, having curiosity is not enough. You need to have a bias for action. If you have your curiosity and you see something, you take some action. Read a book, watch a video, experiment, do something. But great builders have natural curiosity and a serious bias for action. Like great builders want to execute things. Like if they think of something, they want to execute it. It's not like soch liya, maza aa gaya, daru bhi ho gaya. Like, that's not like, you have that. Like, have that mindset that, yaar, I want to try this and I want to see what happens. Right. And what I've also noticed, another great trait, which is not shared by all builders, but some really good builders have, is they share what they've learned. Right. So आपने कुछ सीखा है. Let's say I'll give an example, right? Let's say you are learning Solidity or Viper, whatever have you, right? You figure out there is something in the compiler or some opcode variation which can allow you to use less gas. You share that with people. Right? I've seen great builders do that because that is how open source systems improve with time. See, open source का फायदा क्या है? Coming back to the builder mindset, like when I joined, like they should tell me Polygon का सारा code open source है. कोई भी Polygon बना सकता है. I said, यार ये सब Polygon join करने के पहले बताना था, right? I was completely like, gobsmacked. Like, what does this mean? But then I realized that this is why blockchain ecosystems are so thriving and so fast moving. लोग बोलते हैं ना blockchain बहुत जल्दी चलता है. Lot of things happen very quickly. It happens because the code is open source. See, WhatsApp का code closed source है. इसका मतलब, if you have to create WhatsApp again, you have to rebuild everything again. Right? आपको starting से सब कुछ बनाना पड़ेगा, UI से लेके, code से लेके. But अगर उसका code open source होता, you would be able to iteratively improve on that concept. And this is what happens in blockchain. किसी ने borrowing lending बनाया, उसके बाद next वाले बंदे ने code देखा and he realized I can do this with less gas. Iteration. Then somebody sees, the constant function curve xy equal to k and realizes I can have better curves for, reducing impermanent loss. Iteration, iteration, iteration. And because the code is open source, you can continuously iterate on this design, right? And this is only possible if people share what they're learning. So another trait what I've seen outside of curiosity and a bias to action is that they share what they've learned. ये नहीं कि आपने कुछ सीख लिया, then you're like, yes, अब मैं किसी को नहीं बताऊंगा. Like you don't have that mindset. Like great builders don't think like that. So these are three traits which I feel I have seen, which help me recognize that the person is a good builder.
Personally, I think it's so. This is my opinion, but I think it's the grit or the willpower to figure shit out. So that's something
Absolutely.
I believe in. but then it falls into these two traits that you mentioned.
No, definitely. I mean, if you
It's
can't figure it out,
curiosity and
yeah,
the thing about taking action.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
figuring it out, etc., is also could be sometimes some people are naturally, let's say, smarter at coding, so they're able to figure it out. Otherwise, there's always Stack Overflow, right? I mean, but like I'm saying, right? Like what you said is right. That you have to also believe in the idea enough that you would want to go through, like when things don't work or things don't go your way, you should have that thing that no, I'll keep trying or I'll find some help. I think this is where environments like this help. Where if all of you are sitting together and building, if somebody has a question or an answer, like has a doubt, you can ask a fellow builder, and then when that happens, both of you learn. So yeah, so those are some of the traits. Outside of that, of course, there are many other things, but these three I feel are something which allow me to potentially figure out if a person's a great builder or not.
Great perspective. Thanks.
Awesome. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hello. I just wanted to ask that Polygon has been facing many criticism regarding its centralization and decentralization
Yes.
aspect. And you just said during this conference that it's like in 5 years, like dhanda sambhalna hai,
Right.
and then it will attain the level of Ethereum.
Right.
So is there a roadmap built for it that Polygon has already planned, or is something like that? I just wanted to know.
No, sure. Good question. So I think, okay, so there are two things, right? So what is the ultimate goal of Polygon, right? So like how Sandeep also says, the ultimate goal is to be number 3, right? Number 1 being Bitcoin, which has now become like gold, right? Something you hold, not necessarily trade it. You hold on to it. Second is like Ethereum, which has now become a very powerful global settlement layer where you can settle the transaction finally. And then number 3 should be Polygon, where the bulk of the transactions happen, right? So what is the roadmap? The roadmap here is zkEVM, right? And I'll tell you why, right? If you want to build for global scalability, like what is global, like people say, right, we want to build for global scalability, massive scalability. Iska matlab kya hai? Like, let me give you a mental model. So Android, right? So Android has roughly 1.5 to 2 billion human users, IoT devices aside, right? If you want to operate at Android scale, right now, just you can do the math yourself, right? And this is something, in fact, I can pull out my calculator and tell you what is the meaning of the word scale. So abhi Ethereum 2.0 mein, like what Vitalik has said is, it will scale to 100,000 transactions per second, right? You multiply that with 86,400, which is the number of seconds in a day. So you get the day's theoretical maximum, right? Which is approximately somewhat, 8 billion or transactions. You divide this by 10 million and you get a number of 864. If 10 million users are there, you can only do 864 transactions in a day. You make that 100 million, it's 86 transactions. So even 100,000 TPS is not scalable enough, right? And some others who also tell you, some other blockchains are saying we have 50,000 TPS or whatever TPS. This TPS is nothing. When you look at Android scale, right? Or people playing their games on blockchain, DeFi on blockchain, like everything on blockchain, right? And this is not counting IoT devices. We're still talking about human users, right? So massive scalability is required. So the question comes ki, theek hai, kaise kare? How do we build a system? Like I said, right? We have to build something which stands the test of time. How do we build something which is that scalable, right? Where not 2 billion, but 5 billion people may use it. Like, 60% of the human race or something like that. So the answer here is zero knowledge rollups, right? So we looked at every technology out there. When we made this decision, we looked at optimistic rollups, other future research, etc. And we realized that zero knowledge rollups, where essentially you are using ZK technology to create succinct proofs. You are, creating rollups, which you can then put on Ethereum and the proof on Ethereum. So now you can also prove the proof on Ethereum, right? Is a great scalability solution. And then we went a step further. We said data availability build karo. So what that means is ki on a ZK rollup, you're creating the proof, but you don't need to create a rollup. There's a data availability blockchain whose job is just to ensure data is available. So you just take the data from there and you just put the proof on Ethereum. Samajh gaye? So just to give you like another way of looking at it, if you imagine Ethereum like a global computer, and computer has processing and memory, two things, right? So normally rollup mein kya karte hain? Like the thought process behind rollup was that, okay, The problem is that we are stuck in Ethereum. Ethereum has processing and memory, so we are constrained by the amount of processing and memory available in Ethereum. तो क्या करते हैं? Processing Ethereum के बाहर कर देते हैं. Let's create a roll-up blockchain. एक और blockchain है. This is outside of Ethereum. Ethereum is here. This blockchain is here. Processing यहाँ पे करो. Then what you do is you create a proof. You take a batch of transactions. एक proof बनाया, proof and batch दोनों Ethereum पे डाल दिया. So anybody on Ethereum can recreate the proof. Basically, right? So it becomes like a Ethereum transaction. On Ethereum, you can recreate any transaction. Similarly, you can recreate what has happened on the other blockchain also. This is how a rollup functions. You take the proof and you take the data from which you created the proof, put it onto Ethereum. Now it is like a Ethereum transaction. So you have Ethereum-like scalability. तो इस कॉन्सेप्ट में आपने करा क्या है? प्रोसेसिंग एंड मेमोरी यहाँ पे है, कंस्ट्रेंट है, प्रोसेसिंग को बाहर डाल दो. बट मेमोरी तो अभी भी यहाँ पे है ना. दैट्स अ प्रॉब्लम. तो क्या करते हैं? मेमोरी को भी बाहर कर देते हैं. So you put processing outside, you put memory outside. Now you can scale both infinitely. This is what zkEVM does along with data availability to create this new class of proofs called a validium proof. अब क्या हो रहा है कि आपका प्रोसेसिंग बाहर हो रहा है. जब आपने प्रूफ क्रिएट कर लिया, you don't have to put that data back onto Ethereum. The data is available here on some other blockchain, which is a data availability chain. तो प्रोसेसिंग भी बाहर है, मेमोरी भी बाहर है, दोनों को स्केल कर सकते हो. तो अब तो मजा आ गया, राइट? नाउ यू हैव इनफाइनाइट स्केलेबिलिटी. और आप क्या करते हो? इथेरियम पे बस प्रूफ डालते हो. यू जस्ट पुट द प्रूफ्स ऑन इथेरियम, व्हिच इज व्हाई आई एम सेइंग इथेरियम इज द अल्टीमेट सेटलमेंट लेयर. एंड में जाके सारे ट्रांजैक्शंस करके आप बस प्रूफ डालोगे इथेरियम पे, तो आपके लेयर्स क्लियरली बन गए. एक तो बिटकॉइन तो है ही, लाइक सोने की तरह, इट्स लाइक गोल्ड, राइट? Then you got Ethereum, which is the settlement layer. On top of that, you have this business transactional layer. This is the plan behind Ethereum. I mean, behind Polygon. कि भाई zk rollup लेके आओ, get ultimate processing, get data availability, and now you have processing and memory outside of the blockchain. Both can be scaled infinitely. You are just putting the proofs. So now the arms race or the fight within blockchain becomes different. It becomes कि proof कैसे जल्दी generate करें. How do we create smaller proofs? Data availability chain को high performance कैसे बनाएं? So it becomes a different problem. What I'm trying to tell you is problems still exist and you need to solve those. But the framework with which you're operating by taking processing and memory outside is the framework you need to go with. Otherwise, you are stuck with the power of what Ethereum can offer you. Ethereum is going to become more powerful, but like I've shown you with maths, plain and simple maths, it's not enough. So this is kind of the roadmap here. And the token used to stake this entire ecosystem will be the Matic token. And our like North Star is not कि हम Ethereum को replace कर देंगे, क्योंकि हम कर नहीं सकते. Because जो system बना है उसमें आपको you need like a settlement layer. So our objective is to become decentralized like Ethereum. But we cannot become Ethereum. We will be a layer on top of Ethereum. Does that make sense? All right. So that's like the whole concept behind zk rollups, why it's important, why it makes sense, and why we have chosen this path. We put $1 billion down, right? All our eggs are in that basket now. So, and luckily we're able to make it work. So that's great. But that's why we made this decision, because we did that research and we realized that there is only one way out. And हमारा भी mindset ऐसा है कि या तो हम सब कुछ solve करेंगे or we'll die as a company. But we don't want to become like some middling company कि ठीक है, अच्छा किया, बढ़िया है. Like we don't want to do that. Either we kill it or it's over. There are only two ways out. Binary, 0 or 1. And that's how we operate. So जब पैसा डालना था हमने बोला डाल दो, जितना भी है डालो, doesn't matter. मर गए तो ठीक है, but अगर solve कर लिया तो we will have changed the world. And that's kind of how we've chosen this path. So yeah. Yeah.
Do you think this blockchain trilemma that we have is solved, or are you still expecting some challenges?
I think it will. It will not be completely solved, but we will be very close. See, the Validium proof is still not as perfect as having a proof on Ethereum, but it's close enough, right? So now, if you think about it, we just need to keep getting it closer, right? So the problem becomes different. Like I said, more secure data availability blockchain, more secure zk rollup blockchain. So eventually, that distance between, let's say, a proper Ethereum proof and a Validium, like let's say proof, becomes smaller and smaller over a period of time, where then probabilistically it makes no sense. So I feel that if you have to solve the trilemma, this is the path we need to take. Like there is no other path. Question: why is our zkEVM unique, right? So like I said, zk mein there are two arms races. One is ki you have to make the proof really fast and really succinct, so that whatever transaction you're putting on Ethereum is really small, ताकि cost कम लगे और आप जल्दी कर पाओ. The second most important thing is the roll up, which has to work with the data availability layer. So this proof optimization, right, is exceptionally difficult to do because this goes into research, like math research, better zk algorithms. Isme Starkware has been came up with zk Starks. Prior to this, there was Snark, in which David Bellina did some work. We came out with something called Plonky 2, as in the number 2, right? Now, when we looked at all the zk algorithms out there, now the problem is this zk circuit is running on a blockchain. Iska matlab gas fees bharna pad raha hai, right? You need to reduce this gas fees. Secondly, the proof has to be small because chalo aapne gas fees kam mein proof banaya, but that proof has to go on Ethereum. Plonky 2 does this really well. So Plonky 2 is able to take let's say 1 million transactions, create one proof in sub-second time on commodity hardware. Matlab Mac mein chala sakte ho. So if you go on YouTube and you see the demo video by Bobbins Threadbare, right, you will see that he's running it on a Mac and he's created like a proof for 1 million transactions in sub-second time. Right. So what we love about Plonky 2, it runs on commodity hardware. You don't need like a GPU array or whatever, like which you might need for stocks. Second most important thing is it's recursive in nature. Right. And I'll tell you why recursive in nature is so exciting, right? समझ में नहीं आता, because recursive anyway is a crazy concept. Right. Recursive in nature का मतलब क्या है? Recursive होने का मतलब क्या है कि you can roll proofs into another proof. So if you have, let's say, मेरे पास 1 million transactions है, ठीक है? मेरे को एक proof बना रहा है. What I will do is, instead of using one Mac, right, I will put 4 Macs. 250, 250, 250, 250. 4 proof बना है, लेकिन मेरे को एक चाहिए, right? I recursively add up the proofs, create one. This is very exciting for Plonky 2. It seems like हाँ ठीक है यार, like recursive है, बढ़िया है. No, it's really path breaking. I'll tell you why. Because you can run it on commodity hardware, right? आज Mac पे चल रहा है, right? कल इस पे चलेगा. And this is only becoming more and more powerful with time. This also has excellent network, capability. 5G आ रहा है, उसके बाद 6G आएगा, पता नहीं कौन सा G आएगा उसके बाद. But what I'm trying to tell you is that if you're able to bring proof size on commodity hardware and you're able to recursively do that, you can break massive tranches of transactions into smaller bits, create proofs parallelly, then recursively add them, and then put that proof on Ethereum, which gives you scalability like you cannot even imagine. Can you tell me in the number of mobile phones in this world? It's crazy. This is why Plonky 2 is super exciting. So when we designed this, we said hum Plonky 2 use karenge, because this is the best algorithm. We'll continue to operate on like this Plonky recursive model, and we'll improve the math, make it faster, do all of those kind of things, possibly find better ways to parallelize it. Ye parallelize bolna easy hai, but if any of you have done like async calls in JavaScript, it's a pain, right? To get all of this stuff done. And so even if you have to run it parallelly, you have to rewrite some algorithms also, like for example, like Merkleization, getting the tries together. Like a lot of this stuff has to be rewritten as well, which we are also doing. So this is why we chose this method, because it is super exciting.
Okay, folks. So we have time for one last question due to interest of time. Okay.
Hey, so does Polygon have any initiatives with the government? Because in Web3 space, at least, everyone is apprehensive of authority or else the government. So do you have like any a way to work together with the government or something like that?
So I'll answer the question in 2 ways, right? So one is the government implementing Web3 and blockchain? The answer is yes. Like if you look at the state of Maharashtra's, all of their COVID certificates are on Polygon. So the government is very actually, wants to implement blockchain. And there are several projects. There's a project in Uttarakhand. There's a project in Bastar district in Chhattisgarh where, for tracking judiciary cases, like, the data is being put onto the blockchain so that, you don't have that tariq pe tariq wala problem, right? So, but the second question which you said, which is that there is a problem inherently within the system with authority, right? The way we see it at Polygon is that, like, aapko na sabko saath mein leke chalna padega. If you want to change the world, you need to take everyone along with you. The problem with the Web3 and the blockchain world, what I've seen is that it is like full of people who are very anti-establishment. They're like, nahi, hum aise karenge, or government jai bhad mein, like, that kind of stuff, right? But what we feel is that sabko saath mein leke chalna. You got to take everybody along with you, and that means that you need to do collaboration. So you need to ask governments, Like, what are your problems? So, for example, one of the things government said is that cryptocurrencies are anonymous in nature. You know, you cannot track like, you know, illegal stuff, for example. So you bring in like Polygon ID, right, where you're able to prove where these funds came from without sharing information with the government. Like, you can prove ki Arjun has sent this money. You don't necessarily need to know everything about me, right? And then because you know Arjun has sent it, you can also do taxation and all of those kind of things. So at Polygon, right, we have this mindset. We said ki hame sabko saath mein leke chalna hai. We need to work with everyone if we want to make this dream a reality. We can't have this kind of mindset ki nahi, dekh lenge. Like, you can't have this mindset. So that's kind of why we want to do it the way we are doing it. And we are in conversations with, I would say, governments like across the world now, where we are trying to figure out what does this future look like. ये बहुत amazing future है ना, flying car है, सब कुछ है ये सब. Like कैसा है ये? Like इसमें कौन सा technology चलेगा? So for example, in Switzerland, we are building the entire blockchain infrastructure for a city of Lugano. Right? That's an experiment by the government of Switzerland to understand कि city scale में कैसे चलेगा, फिर समझ में आएगा ना country scale में कैसे चलेगा. So these things are already happening. So we're talking to several governments and also trying to figure out what does this future look like? What are the problems? And then working backwards from that, we can maybe build this future. But this future has to be built together. It cannot be built just by one or two entities or just by governments or just by people. It has to be done together. So that's kind of how we see this problem. Awesome.
Divyansh.
What a session. Please make some noise for Mr. Arjun Kalsy.
Right. All right. Thank you, guys. I won't keep you away from, you know, the building part, but I wish you guys all the best. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Twitter or on Telegram. In both places, it's first name, last name, Arjun Kalsy. Kept it very simple that way. And I wish you guys all the best. And again, thank you for building on Polygon. Thank you, guys.